be sound. All right. Good to go? Okay. Hi. My name is Tunji Williams. I am a co-founder and the CEO of DealWIP. And I'm here with two of my longtime friends and my co-founders, Alex Nordham and James Clark in Breslin. I guess before we get started, I just want to thank Christian and the whole community for having us and accepting us with open arms. We're getting a real kick out of being here and being able to do our thing next to more established companies like eBrevia and Legalmation. So we're going to have fun with it. All right, so our company is DealWIP, and that stands for Deal Workflow Integration Platform. We're a legal technology company, and we're based in Brooklyn and Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah? All right. Our vision for the future is one in which all corporate legal transactions take place in a fully integrated virtual work environment, right? And to that end, our company is working on creating what we hope will one day be the definitive suite of workflow tools for the 21st century corporate legal transaction. That's our vision. That's what we're doing. All right. Before I keep going, I'm curious to know who in the audience is a former corporate transactional attorney or current former corporate transactional attorney. All right, comrades. Of those who raised your hand, how many can think of an element or part of your practice that drives you certifiably insane? Okay, you're not alone. So all three of us are former big law corporate associates, and this company is really born of our frustration. And we were naive enough to believe that we could set out and solve our own problem. So that's why we're here. It's been about a year since we started the company, and since then we've been fortunate enough to build a really awesome team of engineers and UX designers, cybersecurity experts, who are helping us build tools that we hope will elevate the practice of transactional law. Right? So that's why we're here. Before we get into the meat of the demonstration, I just want to tip our collective hat to a couple of organizations that have been really generous with us and helped us accelerate our growth as a company. The first is LexisNexis Legal Tech Accelerator Program out in Silicon Valley. We were somehow lucky enough to get into that program at the front end of starting this thing. It was a 12-week rigorous program out in Silicon Valley, and it's really been helpful and a benefit to us. The second is the MDR Lab program out in London. We've actually just come off that experience. It was a 10-week immersive experience in London. And I'll actually let James explain a little bit about what we did out there and tell you a bit about the problem that we're trying to tackle head on with our product.
Thanks, Tunji. I'm just going to hide back here because I'm working the slides too. So the MDR Lab was pretty critical to the development of our product over the course of the past few months, and I'll just briefly tell you why. So as Tunji explained at the beginning of his introduction there, ultimately our vision is for DealWIP to be an end-to-end, complete transaction management platform on which attorneys can conduct every phase of every legal deal. But what we quickly learned at the beginning of the MDR Lab process was that to the extent attorneys are amenable to any kind of change, that change really needs to be introduced kind of slowly and incrementally. So we wanted to use the 10 weeks that we had out in London to kind of figure out what our wedge could be, right? So we asked attorneys there, what is your worst transactional pain, and how can we kind of help solve it? So we asked them to rate their pain actually on a scale of 1 to 10, and I can show you the results right here. So as you can see, that top red bar there, the due diligence coordination process was the pain that was kind of giving attorneys the biggest headache. So that's kind of how we knew to narrow our focus. And I just want to take a quick step back to kind of describe what due diligence coordination means for those of you who are kind of lucky enough to be uninitiated. So due diligence is really a conversation that takes place between the buyer and the seller, where the buyer is trying to figure out whether there are any material issues with the assets it's trying to acquire. But the problem is in really complex transactions, that conversation can get really long and really unwieldy. And traditionally, the way that you track the conversation and really the key issues in the documents that the parties are looking at is like this. So you have these massive unwieldy spreadsheets. You have Word documents that are kind of kept on local files, and you have emails that are exchanged back and forth. And it's a really unwieldy ad hoc process, and it can kind of lead to nightmare scenarios like the one that Tunji is about to share with you very briefly.
So I've got a nightmare story for you, so buckle your seatbelts. Not too long ago, I was a corporate M&A associate, and I had a terrible experience on the last deal I ever worked on. I was working for a hotshot junior partner and we were working for a private equity fund doing a deal they were very excited about. And it was the first deal in a series of deals that our firm was hoping to do for them. So we staffed the deal really leanly. It was just me and this junior partner. And we thought it was going to be pretty straightforward. A month and a half, we'd be done, right? So we get into the due diligence process, and we learn pretty quickly that's not the way it's going to go down. The target company was a very hairy situation. Within about an hour of diligence, we learned that there were previously undisclosed government actions that we were going to have to look into, high-risk pending litigation, all kinds of things, a parade of terribles. And now we're in a situation where the due diligence process looks absolutely crazy, and I've somehow, as a junior associate, got to do the blocking and tackling and coordination on this process. Needless to say, it did not go very well. We had to bring in an army of specialists to help me out. And let's cut to the end of the story. The client was extremely upset with the process, and the blame fell on my shoulders. And it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. The client said, look, the only way we're going to continue to work with you is if you completely write off all the time this guy spent doing diligence on this deal. So that was 300 hours of my time over 3 months and about $90,000 worth of billable work down the drain. And it was at that moment that I realized this is not for me, and I've got to figure out a way to be on the solution side of this problem because I can't be the only one facing it. And that's where this product comes from, is that type of pain and that type of experience. So Alex is going to take you on a demo and take you on a spin through our product.
Haunting stuff, I think we can all agree, especially if you're a corporate lawyer, right? So my name is Alex. I'm kind of our product on our team. I swear our product exists. I'm about to take you on a demo. Really quickly, though, I want to make explicit kind of, exactly what our product does, right? Because you're not about to see an artificial intelligence solution. We're not built on blockchain. I hope you've gotten the sense that what we're really trying to do is tackle a big problem in a practical way, right? In a simple, beautiful, practical way. And if Tunji and James haven't convinced you yet that this is a big problem, right? Let me just tell you that industry studies say that up to 70% of transaction time is spent managing the due diligence Q&A process, right? So let's jump in and actually see the product. So here we are logging in. This is kind of the matter board, right? It won't surprise you to hear. These are the matters that I'm working on as the user, right? You can add new matters up in the corner there. Obviously, you can search for matters, sort alphabetically. James is kind of showing off a Slack-style shortcut feature that we have in the left nav bar there where you can access your most recently accessed matters with a click of a button. But let's jump into the first feature I want to show you, which is a template request list feature, right? The first step in any due diligence process is the buy side to basically submit initial requests to the seller. Firms keep template request lists that they deploy over and over again in matters, and those templates can now live on DealWIP, right? So users could create a template from scratch. I don't know why they would want to do that. They're going to want to upload their template request list to DealWIP. So here James is doing that. He's selecting an Excel file. He's typing in a name of the request list. Hopefully it's something good. It's not. Template list, and here it is, right? The request list has been populated, categories, requests, all kind of done in an instant, and we can save the request list now, and it's ready to be deployed on matters over and over again. And the idea here is let's not recreate the wheel every time we have a deal, right? Have your templates, use them. So let's go to a matter now and see how you manage the Q&A process and really the due diligence process on DealWIP. The first thing I want to show you is the way that we have permissions structured, right? So if James clicks on that lock in the top corner next to that first request, you can see there are three options, right? There's the ability to publish to just the organization, right? That's the user's team, basically. So if he's a lawyer, say at Blank Rome, it would be publishing to all of the other Blank Rome attorneys on the platform. Then you can publish to the group. So if your firm is, for example, on the buy side, right, you can publish to the buy side client, buy side investment bank maybe. That's what publishing to a group means. And then you can make it public, right, which means publishing to both the buyer and the seller, right? Let everybody see it. A cool little feature that we have to help people just kind of divide what's private, what's public is this switch at the top. You can toggle that, instantly see what's been made public and what's been published and what's still private, right? So you can toggle back and forth. The UI is kind of neat. It makes it dark, so it's a kind of a private space. Now let's add a request, right? So two ways to add a request. Again, you can add from a template, but we've already done that for this matter. So let's create a custom request. Here we are entering a category name. Hopefully James will do something better this time. Active litigation, that's okay. Any ongoing litigation. So he's going to type in the request, he's going to submit it, right? And now let's pop down and actually see how to manage a request on the platform, right? So we got some cool organizational tools. The first is that you can add your subcategories, right? So not every request lives neatly within a single category. Oftentimes something relates to both real estate and litigation, right? Or IP and litigation. So you can add subcategories there. The second thing we have is assignments, right? So you can add, or you can assign various items to people on your team. That's relevant for two reasons. First, they'll get notifications about any activity on that item, and the second is because it helps for the project management piece that I'll show you in a second. And then obviously you can set priorities, right? High, medium, low. This is something that lawyers already do. Basically, it's a way to communicate between the buyer and the seller. This is the most important thing to look at. This is less important. So next thing to do is add a response, right? Once a request has been submitted, you can add responses right in line. Right below the request, you can attach documents. And the idea here is rather than having 9 different emails and 4 different folders in the data room and 6 different versions of a spreadsheet to keep track of information, let's all keep it in one neat place, all below the relevant request list item, right? And so you can nest as many responses as you'd like. Parties can trade back and forth responses. And you can obviously view documents right on the platform. And finally, there's another level of communication. You can add comments right below a response, and these comments are for internal conversation, right? So you can have conversations with your teammates about what that request or their response, has what might be wrong with it, things like that. So that's in a nutshell how you manage things. Let's jump back up to that first category, corporate. It's got a little bit more stuff in it that I can show you. So this has a lot of documents uploaded. It's got a lot of requests, right? And say I'm a user and I don't want to look at all of the requests, the responses, all of the things that are going on here. I just care about the documents. Well, I can click that document button in the top left corner there, and instantly it goes to kind of a VDR look, right? So this is a view that a lot of corporate attorneys are more accustomed to. It's seeing the documents, but instead of just a descriptive folder, right, it's got the relevant question or request that document is responsive to, right? So the idea here is give people context. Tell people why documents are important. Don't just throw 150 things in a folder and expect people to flip through them and kind of find what's important on their own, right? So the last thing I want to show you is this diligence reporting tab, right? And this is really cool. This is kind of the piece that I think is especially needed right now. This is project management, right? So everybody in your team has a request list items assigned to them. You can get a overview of everything that everybody on your matter is working on, the status of those various requests, right? Whether it's completed, is in our court and the other team's court, what issues we've identified, what's kind of has been flagged by that user. And then, of course, in the top corner, you've got, for the entire matter, what's awaiting reply, what's to review, what's completed. That's kind of handy for partners and for clients as well. So that's kind of the demo. Last thing I'll say, right, is that, I'm a former, big law attorney. It's processes like these that kept me up at night, right? I spent countless nights tossing and turning in cold sweats. And I've been doing research, over the last year. This summer I was talking to a partner, and that partner said to me literally, if there's one thing that keeps me up at night, it's my team missing a document or missing an important issue in due diligence, right? And we want to kind of organize the chaos, provide some comfort to people that they're catching what's important and not catching what's not. And hopefully this will kind of de-stress practice for everybody. So that's the goal. Thanks so much for listening. Happy to take any questions.
So where is John? There's John. All right, so John has a lavalier microphone, and we're going to do our best to route our questions through that microphone so it makes it onto the recording, okay? Thank you. Who's got questions?
How do you differentiate yourself from a virtual digital data room that offers also a very good Q&A feature? Because then you already have all the documents, it's used, they already have the clients. How are you going to make them switch?
So the question is why, how are we different than just like a normal data room? With a good Q&A. Which one is that?
For example, intro, like the big ones.
Yeah, so what in our view, right, the difference between us and them is that this kind of collaboration is really built into the DNA of the product, right? I know that Intralinks, Merrill, they've got kind of next-gen products that do have Q&A features that are better than they used to be, right? But they're still, in our view, kind of afterthoughts to the product, and they're not, based upon our market research, they're not really used, right? People view those data rooms as data rooms, and they still kind of conduct the Q&A separate from the data room. So, the idea here is that the team structures are built in a thoughtful way, really built for collaboration. It's in the DNA of the product. And also, we're not a place where extraneous information is uploaded, right? There's none of the additional stuff that people probably don't care about that's typically uploaded to the data room. The idea is put on DealWIP what's responsive to actual requests. Don't put on the stuff that is not, right? So that's kind of, in some ways, it's a philosophical thing. And it's also about the DNA and the structure of the product, the way that teams are set up and permissions are set up.
Thanks for the feedback. Let's do a repeat the question approach. Microphone. Yeah, no.
So,
in the future, moving forward,
got it, okay.
He'll repeat
Sorry.
the question into the microphone.
Tal, could I add one small thing?
James and I were talking about this morning. I mean, we spend like countless hours just going back and forth, arguing about why our product's so great and what we've missed, where the holes are. So we're thinking about this, and James said astutely a couple days ago, a couple weeks ago, I said, look, we're different than VDRs because we put our underwear on before we put our clothes on. And because of the sequence of innovation, they were forced to put on their clothes first. Right, and the underwear came on afterwards. The Q&A module is an attachment, like Alex was saying. It's an afterthought, right? But the other functional difference is a matter of process, right? You think about the M&A process, and you think about who chooses the VDR, right? It's generally seller, right, or seller's financial advisor, and that's a problem. So what we've done is we've separated the Q&A from that central tool, from that VDR tool generally chosen by the seller, and we've made it a central tool, one that everybody can commit to, use over and over again, become engaged with, right? And now, instead of having the seller control the Q&A, which the buyer is unlikely to use because they're unfamiliar with the tool, right? They're likely to use this tool and engage together over and over and over again. So it become a real system of engagement as opposed to a tool that people jump from tool to tool with, right? So that's the difference. It's a small little thing, but I mean, the problem in legal tech is not innovation, it's adoption. And you have to think very carefully and hack processes so you can implant yourself in a space where everybody can feel free and comfortable to adopt the tool you've created. And that's what we're thinking. We may not have got it right, but we think we're close, right? Anyone else? What do you got?
Just curious, on that note of hack processes, what's the next step after this? Who are you looking for your ecosystem of the output or the next evolution of this, of where you're going with DealWIP?
World domination. I don't know. You see, Alex is really good. He's disciplined, and his approach is let the users tell us what to do next. Create a really awesome product that people love and can't live without, and then they'll lead you to what you're supposed to do next. I, on the other hand, have an idea about what we should do next, and it's in the disclosure schedule space. I think that's a massive pain. I think a lot of time is spent there unnecessarily. There's a lot of non-legal administrative work spent on disclosure schedules, and there's a lot of interesting information you can capture to create even more interesting products if you're in the center of that process. So that's where our eye is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I'm just wondering, is the customer the law firms or the companies themselves? Because it seems like the real beneficiary would be the companies themselves if it's a more efficient process, by the big law firm.
Yeah, so the question was, whether the customer is the law firm or the companies themselves, because the companies seem to be kind of right.
Less in legal bills if it's a more efficient process.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So as Alex or Tunji or both of them said, we're all former corporate transactional lawyers. So I think where we plan to start is certainly with law firms. And we kind of think that they will be able to sort of differentiate themselves based upon. Frankly, you can really use this in a client pitch, right? You can say, hey, we've saved X% on previous legal bills, and that's why you should choose us to do your M&A deal. And then there's also, you also have the situation where, alternative fee arrangements are becoming a lot more prominent these days, and in the event that there's an alternative fee arrangement on a deal, that just means that the law firm can get done with the deal quicker and move on to the next deal, right? I think that's kind of why we plan to start there. And in addition, a lot of the kind of process-heavy stuff on an M&A deal is done by the law firm.
Just to add one thing, oftentimes, really you're kind of right to point out, your customer is not your direct customer, it's your customer's customer, right? And part of what we're trying to do is create awesome client experiences for people, right? Due diligence is a huge pain in the butt for sell-side clients, right? I mean, they're the ones that are really producing the information for attorneys. The more that you can actually make a great experience between sell-side clients and the sell-side attorneys, the happier those clients are going to be, right? So there's a lot of value to be added there too with tech to law firms. So yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, thank you guys so much. All right, they will be joining us afterwards if anyone has additional questions. I know I have about 18,000. But thank you guys so much. All right, next up, we're going to hear from eBrevia and Ned Gannett.